The uniform looked right until it didn't. Saturday, gray Portland morning, damp as a sponge. Mom had the screen latched and the chain set, me and my sister lined up behind her like ducklings. The guy on the porch wore the whole costume, navy work shirt, stitched logo cap, laminated badge on a retractable clip. He said there'd been a complaint about a possible gas leak, and he needed to check the interior meter right now. His voice came friendly soft, but his eyes were two busy animals, flicking past Mom into our hallway like they were looking for a marked trail. Mom tilted her head the way she does when she's about to nail a diagnosis, that calm Bronx-born, Oregon-finished squint. "Badge again?" she asked, voice polite enough to pass church muster. He lifted it, held it just long enough for the logo to blur, then tugged it back. The logo on his cap sat a hair crooked, like a patch ironed on a little drunk, and his boots had Sauvie Island in February mud caked into the tread. Stale tobacco threaded the air, and whatever office this guy supposedly worked in didn't smell like cigarettes. "What line pressure you reading?" Mom asked, casual, like she wasn't already logging him from boots to brow. He rattled a number too fast, crisp as a memorized locker combo, and pasted on a smile that landed half a second late. "Basement, ma'am, now. Inside access needed. Urgent explosion risk." There it was, the phrase with the rhythm of practice. Inside access needed. Same cadence every time he said it, like he'd drilled it in a mirror. Mom said, which in mom speak means I'm about to make your day worse. She kept the chain on, shifted so she could still see us with peripheral nurse eyes, and thumbed a call on the wall phone. "Hold outside, please." The guy leaned an inch closer to the screen, careful, testing. The porch wind chime ticked 2 notes. A neighbor kid's bike brake squealed. Somewhere a crow heckled. All of it filed into Mom's head. On the phone. "Hi there, I'm at address. Got a gentleman here about a leak, badge says." She paused, because of course he pulled the badge back when she tried to read it. "Says inside meter." The operator on the other end said what she suspected. No active work orders, no complaints, and all meters in our row are outside. Interior access not required. At all. The man's friendly tone cracked like thin ice. "Ma'am, if you refuse service, I have to note that. I'm trying to keep your family safe." "Noted," Mom said and closed the solid door. Click. Deadbolt. Our breath stuck like we'd been holding it the whole time. From the kitchen, I could still hear Mom's voice, steady as a metronome, giving our address, describing the badge flash and yank, the crooked logo, the mud, the tobacco thread. "I'd like to report an impersonator," she said. The operator gave her a reference number. Mom repeated it back twice, pen already filling the first line of a notebook she pulled from the junk drawer. The knock returned, harder. Porch boards creaked, then a pause long enough for Mom to tilt her head and count. 1, 2, 3. "He's moving," she murmured, mostly to herself. Left foot heavier, like she could hear his gait through the wood. Then nothing. Wind chimes, bike spokes, the refrigerator kicking on. 2 minutes later, he was gone, except for the canvas tool bag he'd left on the steps, like a calling card. Mom didn't touch it. She didn't touch anything. She locked the chain and the deadbolt again, click, click, then called 911. "We'll stay put," she told the dispatcher. "Yes, the kids are inside." No smell of gas. 40 minutes took the shape of hours. Mom dragged a chair to the front window and sat side on, so she could see the porch without showing her face. She breathed like she taught us, count 4 in, 6 out, until the blue lights washed the living room pale. The officers bagged the canvas and opened it on the porch. No meter reader in there. Zip ties. Duct tape. Latex gloves. A folding utility knife with a clean edge that made my stomach flip. One cop started making calls, the other took Mom's statement. She didn't dramatize, she listed. Crooked cap. Tobacco smell. Badge flashed, then pulled back. Urgent inside access. He wrote and nodded like he was checking boxes. "Vehicle?" he asked. "White van," Mom said. "No markings. No plate." Her voice went a little flat at that, anger under ice. "They told us they'd dust the bag for prints, notify utility security, canvass the street. If you leave," the officer said, "use the back door. Avoid the steps." We didn't leave. If this was the end, you'd think the fear would evaporate. It didn't. It concentrated. Over the next weeks, Mom turned our little townhouse into a system. 2 cheap cameras went up, front and back. She taped the back latch, so a shifted strip told her if it had moved. She wrote the non-emergency number and taped it under the cordless phone on the hall table. She made a log book, time, date, cars that lingered, mail carrier's schedule, Yeah, overboard. Yeah, it worked. She ran door drills like fire drills. Someone asks for a parent? She'd say over eggs. We answer through the door, we recited. Take a number. Don't open. Not even for a uniform. If we hesitated, we tried again. It wasn't fear-mongering, it was muscle memory. Schoolyard call and response turned armor. 3 weeks later, our local officer called back. A man matching the description had been arrested 2 neighborhoods over, trying to enter a home as a fire safety inspector. Fake credentials. Second canvas bag with the same contents. A partner waiting in a car to loop around back. They had a handwritten list of addresses. Ours was on it. Ours was the only one where the door didn't open. Mom didn't say, "I told you so." She added a page to the log. She went down to the station to look at stills. White van, gray sedan, off-brand uniforms. She pointed with 2 fingers, the way her father had taught her when he was teaching her to read micro-expressions in the Bronx. Badge style like this, she said. Cap logo crooked by a stitch. Dirt on the knuckles. The detective wrote, "Clear details beat confident guesses." You did everything right, he said. Mom nodded like praise was a tool she could use or not. We varied routines. Grocery day swapped, library with a friend, a chair under the front window placed by ½ inches till the angle was right. The door chain stayed on even when the AC wheezed, and the house felt like a damp cave. It was annoying as hell. Finals were done, and my brain felt like a fried pierogi. I taped the last box shut around 4:30 a.m., snapped a photo of the back seat to text my mom. Proof of life for my stuff, so she'd quit saying I lose everything on purpose. Then hauled myself to the sheets by campus for coffee that could strip paint. The cup sweated in the holder, and the highway out of Pennsylvania felt empty, in that way that makes you feel brave and stupid at the same time. I'd packed tight the night before. Books in one box, bedding in another, kitchen tote wedged at an angle, duffel jammed up behind my seat because the trunk was already full of dumb dorm junk I swear I need. I do this little lane superstition, right until dawn, then center, and I told myself that made me efficient, not paranoid. 2 hours into I-80, somewhere between the exit with the shuttered fireworks barn and the sad billboard for a dentist with a too white smile, I picked up a smell I couldn't place. Cheap cologne with old smoke underneath. Not good cigar smoke, old, like it had been cooked into a coat. It came in waves, stronger on left curves, faint on the straights, like it had weight that shifted. I turned the podcast louder, the kind where the host's voice is a little too calm for the horrible things he's describing. He said something ruinous about people ignoring small changes, and I actually told him out loud to shut the hell up. I cracked the window. The winter air knifed in and made the smell die back to a ghost. I shut it. It came back. I told myself it was the cardboard or the duffel fabric or some cleaner they used at Sheets. At a slow stretch, I glanced at the top box in the mirror. I knew that tape seemed like my own knuckles. I'd pressed it hard with the flat of the packing tape roll and burned the edge with my thumbnail. Now it looked lifted and then smoothed down again, like someone had opened the lid and re-ironed the tape with a lazy palm. I felt my face heat and my hands get slick on the wheel. I told myself I was being dramatic. I'm good at that. I also pushed the duffel on the passenger floor with my shoe to reach my water and felt it catch against something metal I didn't remember being there. That was when the soft noise started. Fabric on plastic. The tiniest scuff, like a hoodie sleeve ghosting across vinyl. I coughed, a dumb test to see if someone would cough back, and then hated myself for doing the movie thing. I clicked the podcast off because the host kept saying they never saw it coming, and I didn't need his foreshadowing in my bloodstream. I told myself I'd stop at the next rest area, daylight only, under a camera, park nose out. Dad's rules. I repeated them like psalms, lights, cameras, witnesses. The rest area arrived like it heard me thinking. I pulled under a pole with a dome camera and a bird nest jammed on the arm. Park nose out. Engine still running, doors locked, phone already on the keypad screen. I counted down from 5 because leaving myself no time makes me panic, but counting makes me brave. At 1 I spun, reached to set the box straight, and froze. The tape edge was sliced, then pressed back like a neat mouth. The cut was too clean for a tear. Knife clean. I hovered my hand there like an idiot who wants to get grabbed, then pulled back so fast I smacked my elbow on the seatbelt pillar. No, I wasn't going to play peekaboo with a person or a bad idea. I put it in drive and rolled around the building slow, so I didn't telegraph the sprint in my blood. There was a diner another exit up, A squat steel-sided thing with pie slices rotating in a dusty case, and coffee that tastes like it's brewed in an old wrench. I parked right by the plate glass windows, under another camera, next to a row of pickup trucks and a single idling semi whose downshift sounded like thunder clearing its throat. I left the car running long enough to hear the locks thunk, then went inside and slid into a booth facing the glass. Hands around the mug, eyes on the car. I didn't even pretend to read the menu. The waitress with the beehive set a cup down like she could see the shake in my hand from space. For a full minute, my car was just a car. The window's reflection held still. Then, like the building took a breath with me, the rear passenger door cracked open. Just a click. Then it eased wider. A man unfolded from behind my seat. Dark hoodie, jeans, backpack slung, movements efficient like his bones had done this exact choreography before. He didn't look up to the diner. He looked left at knee level, keeping his face under the roof line. He pushed the door closed with 2 fingers so it wouldn't slam. Then he walked fast toward the tree line behind the diner, using the big semi's frame to blot himself from view the way you use a friend in a crowded hallway. The coffee sloshed. I was already standing. "Hey!" came out of my mouth thin and dumb. The waitress said, "You okay, honey?" And I was already dialing 911, bracing the phone with both hands because they wouldn't quit shaking. I told the dispatcher the mile marker, the diner name, what he wore, which way he went, that there was a camera and a semi and my rear door had just opened on its own. Saying it out loud shook something loose in my spine. Fear and rage braided together. The manager printed tiny camera stills, and I pressed one so hard the paper wrinkled. A guy at the pumps said he saw a hoodie disappear into the trees. 2 cruisers slid in quiet, lights off. One officer walked the tree line with a flashlight. The other took me to the car and opened everything, doors, trunk, glove box, then crouched to look under the seats with a mirror on a stick like he was fishing. The seat foam had a dent in it, right behind my shoulder blade spot. The box tape was sliced and repressed. When the officer lifted it, the cut line kissed open like a mouth. On the floor track, a crumpled chocolate wrapper, expensive gas station kind I hadn't bought and couldn't afford anyway. They didn't find him in the trees. Of course they didn't. He was fast because he'd practiced fast. The older officer asked if I wanted a tow or a patrol shadow out to the interstate. "People pull this stunt to ride warm," he said, voice flat. "Or to wait until you stop somewhere quieter. You parked where folks could see. That's what saved your ass." He didn't say ass like a scold. More like he was stamping it on a form. We watched the stills together. On one, you can see the exact instant the rear door moves. It's right when the semi downshifts. If you've ever been near one, you know that low roar. He timed the door to that sound. That gave me goosebumps worse than anything. How he'd used the road's own throat to hide his click. The cop had me pull the car under a different light, and then tucked in behind me as I merged back to the highway, just long enough to make my heart rate discover gravity again. After a couple exits, he peeled off with a polite chirp. I sat up too straight for another hour, fingers cramped on 10 and 2, listening to every plastic tick like it meant something. The wrong smell had mostly gone, but every curve felt like a test now. The hum of the tires turned into a wire in my teeth. When I finally got home, I didn't take anything inside. I walked the car once, twice, then 4 times like I could erase something by orbiting it. I found a single hair on the back seat seam, short, dark, not mine, and I had to sit down on the curb because my knees just quit. My neighbor across the hall asked if I was okay, and I said, "Long drive." Which was true, and also not the point. Yeah, I cussed. I cussed a lot. In the shower, over the sink, at the inside of my eyelids. The thought that kept kicking me in the gut wasn't cinematic, it was gross. His breath had been in my car. In my space. That body heat, that cheap-ass cologne, a skin-sweat print on my headrest foam. Hours of highway with a stranger folded up 3 feet from me, because I left my car unlocked under fluorescent lights for 10 minutes while I hunted for energy drinks and pretended I wasn't exhausted. I changed things after. New ritual, lock, tug all 4 handles, lock again. I tap each door twice like a rosary, plates recited under my breath. I take fresh photos of how I stack the back seat, so I have a before and an after. I quit the true crime podcast for a while because I didn't need a stranger's voice telling me about ignoring small changes when my whole body now perks like a dog at every soft sound. Fabric on plastic, click under noise, something weight shifting where nothing should be. The diner manager emailed me a better still the next day. Him halfway out, elbow braced on the door, the hoodie shadowing his face, A sliver of wrist with a cheap bracelet, or maybe a hair tie, can't tell. You can see the timing clear as a diagram. Door opens exactly as the semi coughs. Then he's gone into the trees where the cameras don't reach. Like he walked off the page. The officers followed up once to say there was nothing else to go on, and I said I figured as much. I asked if other folks had reported similar. The older one said, "Enough, in that way that makes you feel both seen and not special." He told me to keep parking where people can see me, and to treat quiet lots like they're lying. It started at the rec courts where the chain link hums in the wind off the river, and your breath looks like you're smoking, even if you never have. Tuesday night, end of practice. Kids clattering gear, coach jawing about defense, and bend your knees, boys, not your backs, like every winter since forever. Damon came out last, dark hair matted to his forehead, glasses fogged, 13 and growing sideways before he shoots up. I was waving, big Annie arms, "Hey there, bud," when I saw her. Thin blonde woman, maybe 40. Phone clutched to her chest like a life vest. She had tears coming down, and she wasn't wiping them, just letting them run. She stood by the fence and stared at Damon, the way you stare at a gravestone you don't want to read twice. When I walked over, Minnesota voice on, soft at first, "You okay there?" She spun to me and whispered, "You took him from me," like I'd stolen groceries right from her cart. Then she raised her voice, turned to Damon and called, "Brandon, it's Mommy. I found you." Damon froze, ball under his arm. He's polite to a fault. He looked like he wanted to correct her. I stepped in, palms up. "Ma'am, that's my nephew. His name's Damon." "You're mistaken." She didn't blink. She held up her phone a little higher so I could see a photo of a younger boy. 8 maybe, blonde, buck teeth, fair as a snowbank. "Brandon baby," she said. A loop, stuck like a toy with low batteries. Coach ran over. The security guard from the lobby came out with his hands low, because we all know the drill. "Ma'am, let's step inside," he said. She let him take her elbow but turned back and shouted, "You can't hide him forever," which, Jesus, made 3 kids cry. He walked her out the side door. We filled out an incident report in that fluorescent office with the chipped desk, me spelling our last name twice so the guy got it right. Damon sat next to me and whispered, "Who's Brandon?" Like asking me might make it untrue. "No one we know," I said. "You're you." We figured it was a one-off. Someone in crisis. Someone who'd get help. 2 weeks later, the vice principal called my sister at work. A woman with a fake volunteer badge had slipped into lunch. She'd stood by the cafeteria door with a stack of napkins like she had a job and tried to take photos through the glass when Damon went by with his tray. Another parent flagged her. She was gone before the SRO hit the hallway. The school pulled the camera stills, and there she was, the same thin blonde. Hair scraped back, cardigan, neutral sneakers, standard mom uniform. It's smart, I'll give her that. You dress like everyone else, you become a smudge. My sister and I pulled both kids for the week. We did the "oh sure, we're fine" voice on the phone with school, and then went full alarm system at home. I slept on their couch in St. Paul. Wedged a kitchen chair under the back knob, old latch, We made lists, deadbolts, brighter bulbs, rides only, and yes, text me when you switch rooms, which sounds bats hit until you try sleeping through a phantom door rattle. Detective Novak called for details. I had a crescent scar on her left wrist, maybe a small one near the thumb, that habit of holding the phone too close like she couldn't see well. Dark blue sedan, mid-2010s, smooth body lines, sorry, I'm a nerd about cars, and a spiral notebook riding shotgun. He wanted a name. I had none. He asked about plates. Minnesota careful means I don't lie. I said it straight. Detective, I'm not going to guess on a plate and mess you up. He sighed like end of shift. The phrases started to surface from people around us. The school janitor said she heard the woman mutter, 8 years. I found you. A neighbor at the mailbox cluster swore. She'd heard the same line near the rec fence. Same cadence. Same weird flat tone. Like liturgy. For Damon's birthday, we rented our friend's cabin out past the ring road, where the lake is really a pond with big dreams, and the floodlight eats bugs for sport. 14 kids, grill smoke, the grown-ups playing goalie. It felt good watching him bend without glancing at the gate. At dusk I hauled the trash to the bin and caught headlights barely on, just a glow. A sedan sat near the ditch, tucked where the floodlight ran out. Through the windshield glow I saw her head, bent, writing. Watching our house. I yelled the kind of words you can't take back. Ran 20 feet and she snapped up, reversed hard, sprayed gravel like buckshot. I didn't get the plate. I got dark blue, older model, windshield chip low passenger side. I held my phone high, 911 already dialing. Active stalker tied to earlier reports. I said like I was ordering a pizza. That calm. Because if I let the rage out, it would have scared the kids more than she did. 2 cruisers came. County different system. They walked the tree line with flashlights, checked the turnouts, asked if anyone had cameras. Sure, our makeshift fortress did. Took my 3 stills from the school and the wreck. Took a photo of the gravel spray like it was evidence, and not just my vibrating hands. They told us to wrap the party. Damon blew his candles while red and blue pulsed low by the road. We laughed too loud at dumb jokes. After, we played Uno and kept glancing at the window like the cards could reflect headlights if you held them just right. 10 days quiet. Quiet has a tone when you're waiting for it to break. We built a life of lists. We put her photo, the best we had from the stills, in a folder by the door. I walked the block with a thermos and waved at everyone like I had a candidate to sell. Minnesota careful doesn't mean passive. It means we do things politely with receipts. Then the mail came. A flyer slipped in with the pizza coupons and the new arborist's magnet. Missing, Brandon at the top in that block font. A blonde 8-year-old on the left. On the right, Damon's school photo from last year, washed out, blown up. My hands went cold all the way into my wrists. Postmarked local. We took it to Novak, who said, "Well, that's something." And I wanted to say, "No sh*t, Ken," but I just let the silence do my swearing. He put it in a plastic sleeve like a butterfly. Damon got smaller in his jokes. He changed his avatar to a hockey logo and stopped wearing the hoodie with his name on the sleeve because it made him feel too labeled. At pickup, if a blonde ponytail moved wrong in the corner of his eye, he'd snag my coat like he was 8 again. We started to count our breaths at crosswalks. We started to call the SRO by his first name in the hall like he was a neighbor. We brought donuts to the office so we'd have an excuse to stand in the doorway and look at the visitor log, which, yeah, is manipulative, but I'm past caring about being tidy. We documented everything. Trespass letter on file at school. Patrol requests. Ring cam labeled by time and weather. Sedan pause, light snow. My sister, bless her, kept the Minnesota nice on the phone while I did the swears off mic. We varied routes. Marshall some days, Summit others, sometimes Grand if the plows had been by. Plow berms made brutal walls. Kids cut tunnels into them. We told ours not to. We told ours a lot of things you shouldn't have to tell kids. Laura ran our front desk like a control tower, precise as a torque wrench, no slip, no over-tighten. If an insurance code was off by a digit, she caught it before the claim ever hit daylight. Widowed 2 years, she'd only just stopped walking around like she was carrying glass. Her husband's mug still sat on the corner shelf. Sun Devil's logo, faded to pink, and her phone still pinged the medication reminder she couldn't bring herself to delete. She'd tap dismiss, with a little flinch, and go back to verifying coverage like nothing inside her had just tipped. The grief group downtown felt like a good thing. Air-conditioned room, metal chairs that wobble, a circle of safe strangers who know not to fix you. Then he showed up. Demon. He said it like Daymoon the first time, and laughed like it was a joke he'd outgrown. Pressed shirts, perfect watch, shoes too clean for a July parking lot. He talked about loss like a podcast host, and tossed out lines like he'd underlined them. Grief is a river, not a wall. Real estate, he said. Solar investments, he said. I'm building things that last, he said, like we were on a brochure. Laura mentioned him over yogurt the next week. 2 weeks later she smiled at nothing on her screen. 6 weeks in, a small bouquet appeared on our counter with a slick white card but no florist name, as if flowers now grow out of anonymity. When he picked her up once, I watched him from sterilization, his hand resting at the small of her back like he owned the hallway. He nodded to me, polite, eyes sliding off before they landed. He played, caring like it was a score he could read. The cash ask came like these things do, softened with story. Big client delayed payment. Short-term bridge just for 2 weeks. 20 grand. Laura had life insurance money sitting like a bruise no one should prod. She moved it like she was taking off a heavy coat. It's a loan, she told us. He saved my life. When it didn't resolve in 2 weeks, another ask came for 15. Then access to a card for shared expenses. He sent her tiny Venmos with notes like utility split, so it would look reciprocal if you squinted. We squinted at LinkedIn instead. The real estate agency's address was a UPS store in Tempe with suite numbers for flavor. Endorsements landed the same week the profile was born. Office photos had the 2 clean lines of stock images. One still had sample, tucked in a corner he'd cropped badly. We showed her. She said he'd closed that chapter and was starting something new. The words felt borrowed, like he'd written them, and she was reading aloud. 3 months in, he moved in because his apartment was under renovation. We never saw a lease, a key, a maintenance guy, anything. The unbranded black tumbler turned up every morning, the same too-sweet coffee that smelled like cheap syrup. If she left it in the break room, his text pinged twice in 3 minutes. "You forget me," like he'd attached a string to her wrist. We tried to slow the bleed. "Ask for financials," our hygienist said. A501c. 3. Letter if there's an NGO like he says. HR contact. An attorney that isn't made of pixels. Laura brought us PDFs with clean fonts and zero spine, badges templated in crisp blue, a mission statement with all the right words in the wrong order, contracts that promised housing and field security escorts, and a blackout communication period for 6 months. Marriage required, for paperwork. "It's common in restricted zones," he said on speaker from the parking lot, tapping his watch at 4:59 like time itself worked for him. "We're protecting clinics." The NGO reps arrived at Laura's house one afternoon. She told us later, 3 people with clipboards, lanyards that didn't match their clips, pens that they all oddly shared. No photos allowed. She texted us a corner of a logo and her own initials on a page. When I offered to swing by with extra cookies, she said guests weren't permitted for security. "Okay," I said, because in Phoenix you keep your voice cool even when your head swims. Her parents loved him. He fixed a faucet, said the words compound interest and family in the same breath, asked about her dad's back pain like he'd studied a chart. When they left the room, the living room frames sat at new angles. Everyone turned a degree toward where he'd been standing. They loaned him their spare van after his alternator went. When I asked what shop, he said, "Buddy off 7th, and changed the subject with a grin that shut the door. Then came the fairy tale's last act. He'd been recruited by an international NGO to coordinate medical supply logistics in Central America. 80 grand a year, plus housing. He showed printouts with assignment numbers and a badge mock-up with his photo, bold sans serif, glossy crest, little watermark that somehow looked pixelated up close. Marriage required. No outside comms for 6 months due to operational risk. Her health insurance? Cancel it. The NGO would cover her. Her house? Put it on the market. For speed, better to grant power of attorney to Demon so he could handle papers while she was in transit. We called a fraud hotline in the break room with the door shut. The consultant listened, then said it like a weather report. Classic isolation play. Get her married quick. Get her assets under someone else's hand. Cut her off from phone and money. If you confront, you can escalate. Gather documents. Keep her anchored. We printed a checklist and tucked it into Laura's locker under a magazine so she wouldn't feel ambushed. She brought it to me with eyes that had gone flat. "I know you care," she said. "You're making this ugly." Our office manager, who hates drama, asked Laura to at least see a real attorney. Laura said they'd used pro bono counsel through the NGO. She showed an email that read like a blog post, timestamped 3:17 a.m. from Fieldret, with a domain that didn't resolve if you actually typed it. I called the number at the bottom. It rang to a generic voicemail with an accent that reset every sentence. We watched the little rituals tighten. His texts arrived at exact intervals, 8:02, 12:32, 4:59, like timer pings. Compliments came prefabricated. "You are resilience embodied. You're my lighthouse." Words that wanted to be quoted. He brought the same flowers once a month, always without a store tag. The tumbler never changed. When she left it behind once, a voicemail showed up half deleted, his voice coaching her. "Say you're overwhelmed because that's honest and strong." And then the message broke off like he'd thought better of leaving evidence. She quit on a Friday. "We fly Sunday," she told us, voice bright and thin. He was idling at curb at 4:59. Watch tap. She walked out with a cardboard file box and didn't look back at her desk. Her phone went to voicemail by morning. The Sun Devil's mug stayed on her shelf for 3 days before the cleaner moved it to the lost and found like it was any old cup. The yard sign popped up in her lawn 2 days later. Discount agency, phone number in peeling vinyl. Everything was handled through a power of attorney she'd supposedly signed. The listing agent said he'd met Demon once. Unremarkable man in a suit that didn't fit quite right, eager to close, asked for cash pickup behind a check cashing place because cash is king. When the agent suggested a wire was cleaner, Demon chuckled. Wires are for people who don't know how the world works. We opened a missing persons case. The detective said the quiet part kindly, Laura's an adult. Without signs of force, they can't do much. He took our printouts and said undue influence, like noting it gave us a railing to hold. We went home with incident numbers on small cards that curled in the heat. We tried bureaucratic stares that doubled back on themselves. IRS nonprofit lookups at lunch, domain searches that pointed to nowhere, calls to partner clinics that rang to busy. I drove to the UPS store just to see the suite number printed in clean blue on his office. It was a wall of mailboxes and a guy named Mike who said, "Can't share rentals, ma'am," and slid the window shut because the air conditioning was escaping. I stood there and watched the heat shift the asphalt into a mirage and thought, that's his whole trick. Look long enough and the image wiggles until you doubt your own eyes. Holiday dinner ran long. Office small talk, rubber chicken, raffle basket nobody wanted. I left with a to-go cupcake and just enough time to catch the last train. Platform was cold enough to bite. You could hear the ticket machine wheezing and the sodium lights humming a hair-off key. 20 minutes till the train, said the board. Fine. I scrolled, mind on autopilot. That's when she came up, a woman in a sharp camel coat, leather bag, good shoes that didn't squeak on the concrete. Professional. Concern in her voice already loaded. Hey, sorry, are you the gray Accord? Far row by the flickering light? It landed like she'd practiced. Flickering light with a little head tilt, same rhythm you'd use to say left on red. She added, saw a kid crouched by your driver's door. Looked like he had a tool. Tone was right. Detail was right. Lot's got one lamp that strobes like a dying club, and everyone who parks here knows it. My stomach did the little protect your stuff jump. I looked at the clock, 20 minutes. I could check the car and be back with time to spare. I'll walk you, she said, already angling her bag strap higher like she was in a helpful hurry. Jersey calculus says crowd over convenience, cameras over close by. Also says don't be a jerk to someone trying to help. We went. Lot lighting is patchy this time of year. Puddles of orange, big swaths of dark where you can't see a face unless it turns. Her heels made almost no sound on the asphalt, which registered somewhere in the back of my head as weird. Nice shoes usually tick. We cut across the first 2 aisles. She pointed from a distance, not closing in, like she wanted me in front, center frame. Right there, by the flickering light, she said again, same cadence. That tick fell into place like a puzzle edge. My gray Accord sat where I'd left it, bumper kissed to the curb. Doors looked fine. No pry marks. Mirrors straight. I went full dad mode anyway. Tugged the driver handle locked. Ran a finger along the door seam, checking for scratches that would tell a crowbar story. Nothing. I crouched and spun the valve cap, snug. Winter metal bit through my glove, that sharp cold sting you remember later. Looks okay, I said, starting to turn. She wasn't beside me anymore. She drifted 5, 6 cars over, half turned away, phone to her ear, voice low. Yeah, now. Or maybe I imagined that. When I waved, she flashed me a quick thumbs up without breaking her call, and walked toward the path back to the station. She didn't wait to hear it's fine. The helpful escort just peeled off. That pinged louder than the rest. Still, because I'm me, I checked more. Palmed the roof, peeked at the passenger side, tugged the back door handle. I didn't tug the rear passenger on the far side, old habit. One chirp means all for our good, right? I circled the trunk, and my eye caught a neat little square under the rear tire. A folded gray microfiber. Not trash, not random. Placed. I bent, picked it up. Clean. No grit. Who leaves a clean rag under a tire? I set it on the trunk lip, like a question I'd come back to. On the way to the stairs, I glanced across the aisle and caught a sedan window at just the wrong angle. Not my reflection, someone else's. A shape low to the ground by the shadow line where the light dies. A hand. Or a knee. By the time I focused, it was just darkness, my breath going white. I filed it, the way you file a plate fragment you can't call back up later. Back on the platform, she was gone. And there's only one way up from the lot. You can't miss someone coming past unless they never came back that way. I stood where I could see both the stairs and the path. Nothing. Train rolled in. I sat, cupcake on my lap, thinking about the way she said flickering light, exactly the same twice, like it was written on a cue card. Halfway home, the brain finally did its job. One way in, one way out. She kept me in front the whole time, never closed distance, walked away before the all clear. Kid with a tool, but no tool name, no flathead, no Slim Jim, just a tool. The microfiber under the tire like a signal for a crew. Job started, Mark moved. And the part one hated, the part I'd been too sure about, wallet at home? No. I'd stuffed it in my blazer, hanging over the driver's seat at the dinner, so my pants pocket wouldn't bulge. Phone in hand, yes. Wallet in the car, yes. Cards and ID tucked safe. Cashed, we'd see. At my stop, I got off with that hard little knot under my sternum, the one you get when you know exactly how stupid you've been. I drove home with my jaw locked, garage light popping on when the sensor finally woke up. I opened the rear driver's side, reached behind the seat. Blazer. Wallet where I'd left it. Cards, license, transit. All there. I counted the cash twice. Light by 100. Just the bills, not the receipts, not the coffee punch card, not the stupid Lucky movie stub I keep. Quick. Clean. I called the non-emergency line because the cops deserve sleep and I wasn't bleeding. The officer on the phone didn't even need me to finish. Known team, he said. One distracts with a plausible detail. Partner goes for the unlocked door you didn't tug. They only take cash, no fraud flags, no calls to your bank, and you won't notice till you're home. He asked if the concerned lady used a specific phrase. I said she'd twice said far row, flickering light. He hummed like he'd heard that exact song. They stick the landing on local details. Did you find anything by your tire? Microfiber, I said. Folded. Signal, he said. Lets the picker know which car is the mark if you two split. He took the time, place, rough description. Camel coat, neat hair, heels that didn't make noise. Quiet shoes, he said, like he was adding it to a bingo card. All told, their part took under a minute. You heard me off the platform. You keep me out of line of sight of the platform camera. You talk away from me at just the right moment, so I'm crouched and focused on the obvious while a second person ghosts the passenger rear, crack open, in and out, door nudge back, no slam, no dome light. Cash only, so I don't freak and cancel everything. I go back to the train thinking I handled it. They leave thinking they can do 10 more before midnight. Night shift spits you out hollow. I clocked out at 11:32, shoulders gritty with salt dust from the loading bay. Wind off the lake had that knife edge that sneaks through coats. The bus stop at the corner hissed steam and smelled like old fries. CTA tracker said 3 minutes, which is Chicago for maybe. I stamped my boots, venture card in my sleeve pocket, where I always keep it, so I don't fish in the cold. Bus finally rolled up, half empty, heater rattling like loose cutlery. Salt slush gathered in the stairwells, shoe prints melting into each other. I slid to the rear half, window side, set my bag on my shoes. Quiet car, a guy in work orange, a kid asleep mouth open, one older lady doing a crossword with a stub pencil. Plenty of space. Plenty of quiet. At the next stop, he got on. Gray suit, overcoat unbuttoned like he hadn't felt the air. Mid-30s, maybe 40. Hair neat. Tie too tight. Whole back row open, and he sits across from me, aisle between, like we're assigned seats. He pulled out his phone, lit the screen with his thumb, lifted it to his ear, and said, "Yeah," into the air. I caught the reflection in the window behind him, black screen. No call banner, no digits, just his face floating and the city sliding past. He talked anyway. Loud enough for me, too quiet for anyone actually on the other end. "Running late," he said. "Yeah, it's fine." Then nothing for a stretch, like whoever not there was listening. He nodded. He wasn't listening to anything. Hands jitter. That's what I noticed next. He set the phone, popped open a briefcase, closed it, popped it again. Not rummaging, just click, click, like a metronome. At each light, the latch. At each stop bell, the tie adjustment, pinch, slide, even though it sat straight. Man was wound like a thrift store clock. My stop was 2 away. Not a loop stop. This is 2 flats and alleys, small churches with light-up signs, the kind of corners where the salt piles turn black by March. I watched him in the window, so I didn't have to look at him. Every time I flicked eyes to my phone, he flicked eyes to my hands. I stood early, habit, to move toward the door. He stood too. Not right away. 1 Mississippi. 2. Then up, briefcase in hand, like we'd practiced this together. I shifted to pole side so I could see him and the front without giving him my back. He stared straight ahead. Bus rocked. Heater hissed. The older lady's pencil scratched like a moth. We pulled to the corner. I stepped down to the lower stair, looked out the windshield to check the block. Empty, just sodium light puddles, and that one lamp that flickers like it has opinions. Doors whooshed. Cold rushed in. I got off. 15 feet behind, he got off. She was not loud. Controlled. I didn't head home. I cut right toward the 24-hour corner store we call the aquarium because the fluorescents buzz like bees and make everyone look sick. Survival math ran in my head out of habit. Guard desk is 10 steps from the register to the back room. Convex mirror over aisle 3 shows the whole door. Cameras 2 and 5 cover the coolers. If something breaks, I want a clerk, witnesses, glass, a recorded thing. He didn't hurry to catch up. He settled into my pace like he was trying me on. Street quiet. You could hear a TV up in a third-floor walk-up. Someone's radiator knocking. My breath white. I pulled the store door, bell chimed. Heat and old coffee smell wrapped me. I made a lazy loop by the cooler doors. First pass. Pick up a water so it looks like I'm buying. Second pass. Check the fisheye mirror. He hadn't come in. Third pass. He was at the threshold, half in, half out, keeping the door from closing. He had the angle. If I came fast, he could step in front. If I froze, he could hold the frame. He wasn't shopping. He was waiting. He did the tie thing again. Slow this time. Almost calming himself with it. Then the shoelace move, bends to tie, head down, briefcase perched on his knee. Lace already tied. I could see the double knot clean. He pulled at nothing. I texted my roommate, "You home?" He wasn't. "Want me to call?" The clerk asked. She'd clocked it and was watching him in the fisheye like it was her job, because it was. "Not yet," I said, thumb over 9 to 1 on the screen, phone sitting face up on the lid of the water like a prop in a plan. He stepped back out. The bell didn't even finish, then slid just out of view behind the lottery posters. I hate when people know the blind spots. We hung there. I bought the water with cash I didn't want to take out because that means looking down, but I did slow. He drifted off then, like the scene had lost its energy for him. No big turn, no sprint. Just gone along the brick like he had all night to practice not being in a camera's eye. I waited another couple minutes, and then called a taxi. The clerk said, "Want me to watch you to the curb?" And I said, "Yep." Next morning the news app lit up on my train. Body found 3 blocks from my stop. Male, 20. Strangulation. Time window midnight to 2. Item recovered near the victim, gray tie. The photo crop left the curb line in, the way I knew which corner. My stomach went to concrete. I pulled up the bus screenshot I'd taken off the front monitor the night before, that little screen by the driver that cycles cameras. I'd snapped it when Gray's suit leaned into the aisle at my stop. Timestamp matched within 20 minutes. I sent it to CPD with a short note and my number. When a detective called, I gave the beats clean. Gray suit, dead screen phone, briefcase clicks at lights, tie adjustment at bells, threshold camp at the store, fake shoelace. He asked if the man spoke to me. He didn't. "Eyes," he asked. "Hands," I said. I watched his hands. Case stayed cold. Months later, a different detective called back with that end-of-shift rasp. "Do you remember if he wore a lapel pin? Specific emblem?" I didn't. If there was a pin, it didn't register. He asked if I could be confusing the stop. I wasn't. I walked him through the heater rattle, the crossword pencil, the slush on the stairs. It all sat exactly where it sat. He said, "Okay." It sounded small. Nights'll sand your brain down smooth if you let 'em. I clocked out a touch after 2, scrub top under a hoodie, badge flipped to my chest so it wouldn't flash in the lot. Our guard was tied up in West Wing with a family meltdown, so I didn't wait on an escort. Lot was near empty, 3 employee cars, 1 lonely light humming like a mosquito. Humidity sat on my skin, even though it was January. Gulf Air doesn't read calendars. I did my little rituals, backseat check with the flashlight, trunk glance, door tug, lock unlock lock. Tank needle just over half, never below, that's a rule. I pulled my Honda onto the feeder, merged to the beltway with the handful of semis who own that hour, and set the cruise at "Please Don't Notice Me." Whataburger's orange W threw a comfort glow in the rearview. Stations like that are safe harbors, bright people cameras. I keep a mental map. 10 minutes out, I picked up a shadow. Dark sedan, 2, maybe 3 car lengths back. Not too close, not far. People stack up on empty roads, it's normal. I moved over a lane. He moved. I took the exit for a minute, rolled the feeder, then slid back on. He did too. No horn, no pass, just patient. Like we were hooked by invisible bungee. Houston shuffle time. Lane change, feeder, back to freeway, then the long light corridor where every intersection gets mean at night. I never take my cul-de-sac when I've got a tail. Y'all can forget that. I took the long way toward Maple Avenue because the PD's there, flagpole and all, and I filed that as a safe box since orientation. I counted. That's what the clinical brain does when it has nothing else to do. Mirrors on 2 count. Lane change on 3. He mirrored me at 2 like a metronome. He braked on stale yellows only, rolled greens. Never squeezed a fresh yellow the way regular folks do at 2 a.m. vitals, but for driving. Heart rate 96 at Bucky's billboard. I said to myself, half a joke. Climbing. My thumb hit 911 on speaker before the next exit. Dispatch answered smooth, that grocery list voice I love. 911, what's your emergency? Night shift nurse, gray Honda, eastbound on County 12, I said. Dark sedan tailing me. It's been 10 minutes. I'm aiming for Maple Avenue Station. I'm not going home. Copy. Stay on main roads. Doors locked. Twice. Good. Keep talking landmarks if you can. I started narrating. Passing Sunoco. Passing the storage place with the broken R. Crossing over the Bayou Bridge where it always smells like pennies. She kept me lined up like an ICU handoff. You're doing fine, she said. Units rolling. Lights ahead stacked red like a trap. Driver in front of me, delivery truck, stopped short. Median boxed my left, parked car boxed my right. I eased to a clean stop with room to slide if I needed it. My hands went hot and dumb. I put them high on the wheel where anyone could see I wasn't reaching. The sedan slid up, unhurried, into the lane beside me until we were window to window. Passenger window ticked down. I heard the faintest click under his engine, the sound of a switch someone's used to flipping. The dispatcher asked, "Where are you?" Maple and 3rd. Inside lane, I said. My voice went thin and even. He's parallel to me. Units 1 minute. Do not engage. When that light turns, proceed to the police lot. Keep rolling. I stared straight ahead until not looking felt stupider than looking. 2-second glance left. Average man. Late 30s, early 40s. Polo instead of a suit, clean shaven. Phone glow under his jaw made his skin look gray. No expression to meet. Not angry, not curious. Pupils pinprick in the dash light. He turned his head forward again with mechanical calm, like a machine finishing a subroutine. The crosswalk counter hit 1. Light flipped green. I punched it, not reckless, but decisive, curved right into the PD lot under the flagpole. I parked nose out where the cameras bloom everything flat, and I left the engine running. He rolled to a stop a block shy of the entrance and idled there, like a dog who hit an invisible fence line. Sat that way for a whole minute, then did a slow U-turn and ghosted off down Maple like a task had ended. Still in sight? Dispatch asked. He turned, I said. My breath finally remembered how to be breath. Stay in the vehicle. Do not exit. Officers 2 out. I recited street numbers and the little ridiculous details. I'm under the flag. There's a banner for a blood drive tied crooked, because saying small true things calms people. Calms me. A cruiser pulled in without lights and parked nose to nose with me, then shifted to block the exit angle. The officer, older, tired kind, did the knuckle tap on my glass. I cracked the window, handed him license and the nurse badge I still had around my neck like it counted for something. He handed the badge back. You the caller? Yes, sir. Tell me everything. I gave it to him clean. Lot, beltway, mirror pacing, the 2-count lane changes, the stale yellow brake pattern, the window click, the blank face. I showed him my call timer on 911, the route on my dash cam phone app. I bought the cheap one that night I got spooked by a deer and never took it down. He put out a bolo with the few crumbs we had, dark sedan, unknown plate, driver male, average, then told me what I already knew. If you see it again, don't lead anybody home. Don't box yourself in. Choose lit arteries over shortcuts. Keep your tank over half. He offered to ride behind me for the first mile out of the lot. I took it. He chirped his siren once at the turn like a benediction and peeled off. I took the long way home. Whataburger lot gleamed like church. I didn't stop, but I let the sight of it take my pulse down 10 points.